Yeah, I don't technically work for them anymore. I contract to them because I have my own company now too. But it's still, it's too close. I even got coffee cups made. My dad said, "Hey, you want to make some of them?" I was like, "Sure, how much?"
Recording in progress.
Chris just texted me. Did you get that? I'm not feeling good. Let me know if you need me not participate on Zoom.
We still have quorum.
But if he leaves or okay, stop.
Still quorum.
Yeah. Okay. Tish is coming, right?
Yeah, she's usually here by now.
She normally walks in and say, "Let's call the meeting to order." Yep. She got 2 minutes.
Sound like she needs a furlough.
I know. There could be a traffic.
Right. So what if it's a 2-2 tie?
That's it. That's why we need her.
Then it gets postponed. Spe-
Chris is not. I don't know about Tish.
Well, she said let her know if we need her.
Chris said she could jump on Zoom.
We'll have a quorum even without Cash though, right? So.
Let me text Tish real quick.
All right.
Yeah, I don't have her.
Tissues on that?
Well, if you say the pledge, then people will show up.
Right.
Okay. She forgot to adjust her clock.
Well, I guess if it comes down to it, maybe she can jump on or no? Or does she have to start the meeting too?
Yeah. I would just move on. We should not.
All right. Oops. 6:31, I call this meeting to order. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Evans,
Present.
Vice Chairperson Gadd,
Here.
Commissioner Nelson, Commissioner O'Shea Heidinger, Mayor Tarkington,
Here.
Commissioner Snooks,
Here.
Chairperson Nyberg,
Here.
5 present, 2 absent.
If everyone would please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. Thank you. We're going to move on to general public input, but if you're here for 2B or 2A, please wait until we're to that to speak. Anything else, feel free to step up to the podium and state your name and address.
Good evening. Brian Blanchard, 627 Louisiana Drive. I just want to say before we all get going here to ask the board to hold to what few and far between ordinances we kind of have already and ask questions about these developments as they come up. And if you have questions or concerns, you have the right to continue on at a different time to get those questions or concerns answered. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Any other general public input? All right, seeing none, I'll move on to 1E, Planning Commissioner's Disclosure Conflicts of Interest.
Yes, I have to recuse myself from 2B and 3C.
Anyone else? Thank you, sir. I would entertain a motion for the approval of the agenda.
I would move that we approve the agenda as presented.
I will second.
I hear a second. Roll call, please.
Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Gadd,
Yes.
Mayor Tarkington,
Yes.
Commissioner Snooks,
Yes.
Chairperson Nyberg,
Yes.
all in favor.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to 2A, and this is the public hearing portion of 2022-24-2107 Bayfield Parkway, Pine River Commons annexation. Ms. Nicole?
River Commons, 2107 Bayfield Parkway annexation. And this property is located south of Highway 160, between Highway 160 and Bayfield Parkway, on the eastern edge of the community, just west of Sunrise Estates subdivision. They're proposing to annex approximately 16.3 acres into the town of Bayfield. Proposed zoning will be planning and development. This would allow for a mix of commercial and residential uses on this property. Right now, there's a couple constraints that we'll be working through with this proximity. The first one is its close proximity to AmeriGas, which is a concern of Upper Pine Fire in the town of Bayfield, with AmeriGas being close to residential, even currently close to existing residential. So working with them on making sure that they meet all of their requirements for safety, and if there's anything else that we can do to mitigate any potential impacts from that use. They also have a Schroeder ditch that runs through the property, and so working through that process and how to mitigate that in their proposal. And then also their access off Bayfield Parkway. Right now CDOT's not going to allow any access off of Highway 160, so all access needs to come off Bayfield Parkway. And so just working with the applicant to make sure there's a safe access off Bayfield Parkway, specifically that eastern access close to the gas station and to the hopefully future signal, the Bayfield East signal there. So making sure that that all works together with sight distance visibility, as well as distance for vehicles coming off the highway, and then those turning right into the development. So a couple of things that will be worked through as we move through this process. So currently this is a concept plan. They're looking at doing some commercial along the highway frontage. And here's the road I was talking about, this intersection, just making sure this is in the appropriate location to not impact traffic along Bayfield Parkway. And then they're proposing 2 residential lots that they're looking at townhomes, so multifamily type development. And townhomes are purchased, so you purchase townhomes, but they're considered multifamily, but owner occupied or ownership. And then they're also proposing to keep the old home as is, and subdivide that off when they come back through their planning process, so that they can keep that as is and not, they're not proposing any development where the current home is located. So annexation process does go through state statute, so we do have requirements that we have to meet in order to even process an annexation. It has to be 1/6 contiguous to the town limits. In this case, if you don't look at the highway, it's pretty much surrounded by town limits, and the highway is not annexed, but you can, per state statute, you can jump over that town highway, so they're almost 100% contiguous. They have to be capable of integrating into the town services. They have to be located within 3 miles of the current zone, or the current town limits. They did submit their annexation petition. The resolution was approved and accepted by the Board of Trustees back in October. They did go through proper public notice. They provided annexation impact report. And so now we're starting the hearing process. They have to go before Planning Commission, and ultimately the Board of Trustees does have to approve this. And then they would have an annexation plat, an ordinance, and an annexation agreement that are all legal recorded documents before it's finalized. And this is just the plat that they're proposing to annex. You can see this piece is not shown on the plat, even though it's the same ownership, because that's already in the town limits. I don't know when that was annexed, but it was annexed separately. It is a separate parcel, so they're bringing in the rest of the property into the town limits. Annexation is really the first phase. This is letting the developer know that, yes, we're interested in this piece of property being in the town limits rather than in the county, and therefore we have jurisdiction over whatever happens to that property versus any county review. But they do still have to go through a process of sketch plan, preliminary plan, and final plan through the town of Bayfield process before they have any approvals. So even though they're proposing commercial and residential, part of the plans are gonna require traffic studies, environmental studies to just determine exactly what the uses will look like and how they will be laid out on the property. So they still have quite a few steps. And like I said, this is really the step is getting them into the town of Bayfield so that the town has jurisdiction over the process for their development. There are some conditions that I did put on the staff report. I'll go through them quickly, I won't read them all word for word, but they are required to, the next step would be a sketch plan, which doesn't meet our land use code. There was a question about like right of way. We do require all that already in our land use code, so extensions of orchard. Will need to be part of that review. I'm sorry, not review. Extensions of the internal drive will need to be part of that review. So that includes all right of way. Any subdivision process will need to go through that town process as well. So they subdivide the properties off. And with townhomes, it's a little bit different. Let me go back to the. So the commercial, they can create these individual lots as part of the subdivision at their next phase. And those could be either further subdivided in the future or just remain these larger lots with larger commercial uses coming on or like a center. For townhomes, you actually do come in and do a subdivision plan that gives a general idea of those townhomes, but they actually would be replatted again as as-built. So with townhomes, because you share lots, you come back through a process. So they would come back through 2 final plan reviews. One to get the bigger lots created, and then the second one when they do the as-built for those townhomes after they have foundations and walls, so that they are 100% accurate on the space that they're selling to individual property owners. It's a little bit different process when you do it in townhomes. So sketch plan does need to be consistent with any board complete approvals of the annexation ordinance and annexation agreement and the plat. The applicants do need to submit an agreement with the Schroeder Ditch Company on referencing how they're going to handle the Schroeder Ditch through the property. Mr. Albert, the applicant, had just stated that they've been meeting with the ditch company, so they're already starting those conversations, but the proposal is to pipe it underground. Sorry, I don't know what's going on yet. And I'll read the last condition. And then, staff is also asking right now, the Bayfield Parkway is the town's responsibility, but it's not annexed into the town of Bayfield. And so we are going to be going through a process of trying to bring in Bayfield Parkway and some properties along Bayfield Parkway that we would consider county enclaves into the town, hopefully this winter sometime. But because this project is coming in right now, we are asking that they at least annex to the center line of Bayfield Parkway, so they'll have to amend their plat, annexation plat to include to the center line of Bayfield Parkway all along there, the edge of their property, so both on the east side and on the south side. So we're making that a condition of approval. And then if they have any surface water rights, we do need to work with them and our water engineers to determine what their demand is going to be. And if they do have water rights, at that time we will consider, depending on what those rights are, bringing those rights, dedicating those to the town of Bayfield so that we can transfer them to urban rights. Otherwise, they would need to pay the water in lieu fee in lieu of dedicating water rights. So that's a conversation that still needs to occur, but making that a condition of the annexation. With that, I do have possible motions. So motion to approve, deny, or continue. Staff is recommending approval. This did come before you, before I was here in 2021. And was approved, but it was never finalized, and the use was different. They were going to keep it commercial, so now that it's going to planning and development, surrounded by town limits, and we do want to have control over what happens on this property. So town is supporting the annexation request, and I'd be happy to answer any questions that you have of staff, and I know the applicant's present as well.
Has there been an impact statement done with the school district on the 100 students that would be added to the attendance area over the 4 years that's being estimated?
What do you mean impact?
So on the packet that we were provided, it said over the span of 4 years, they're estimating, because they're assuming they're going to have low child attendance in this subdivision, rather than townhomes, which I would disagree, that they would estimate there would be 100 students over 4 years added to the school district. And I'm wondering what the school district is saying would be the impact on their budget, class sizes, and the required staffing that would take to accommodate those students.
So the school district, even though they are a review agency and we do send everything to them, they did not provide any specific comments on this project. But staff has met with them in the past, and they are talking about there's going to be some needs for expansions on schools in the future, especially when Bayfield East comes through. So they're already planning for that process as part of, so we presented them with all of these projects that are coming in so that they are able to start planning for their future needs. But they did not specifically comment on this one. They're commenting on the bigger picture of what's happening in Bayfield right now, and then trying to adjust based on the developments that we're seeing. So I don't know if to answer your question, but yes, the school district's aware that projects are going on and they're working on their process, but they did not give me any specific comments to this project.
Any other questions from the board?
And the other thing, I guess, I just want to point out is every residence has to pay a school impact fee. Right now, it's over $700 per unit. The school district is coming back to the board of trustees to talk about increasing that as well because of the impacts that they're seeing in some of the development too, so that they do have the funds to.
So there's a direct correlation to our development and taxation on the public.
It's not taxation, it's a fee.
Well, it's a tax.
It's an impact fee, and they just did a study to show that they needed to collect a higher fee.
Because we're having more students in the school.
And they need, the fees are really tied to facility improvement needs.
Because there's more students.
Right.
Because we're approving more and more residents. Okay.
Any public comment on this matter?
Nicole, can you put up the sketch plan? Brian Blanchard, 627 Louisiana Drive. So this looks like a nice little project, and I'm generally in favor of it. However, the concerns I have are a couple. Right on their conceptual plan, and I know we're in the early stages of this, and this can be modified and adopted later, but it seems like you would have to have one ingress and one egress for a variety of reasons. And as I look at this, right now, they're saying that it's a proposed emergency access near the new proposed intersection by the gas station. If that doesn't come to pass, if somehow they can not be required to do that, then all of the traffic has to come out on the other access point, including all of the commercial, because CDOT is not going to allow anything off of Highway 160. As you look at that, without the second ingress or egress, that's a tremendous amount of traffic coming out on one spot, both residential and commercial, trucks, everything. So that would be a concern I would have. The other is, I don't see any open space or park space set aside in this, and it may be that that's incorporated into their detention pond situation. So again, I know it's prelim, but there is a formula that the town has for open space and park. And how you factor that in on this particular project, I'm not sure. But if, depending upon the number of units that are brought forward, it could be substantial if we follow our current land use code formula. So that's what I have on this. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Good evening, Kat Katzos, 525 Dove Ranch Road. So, Nicole, do you know if that ingress that they're proposing on the east side, would that connect right into Kramer?
It would be across from it, and right now the town code, we like to see roadways across from existing roadways, so that's what we're working with them on right now, is making sure that that can happen.
Okay. So the ingress and egress from Kramer and also to that road, the ingress and egress to the Conoco station is incredibly close to that. So I'm not sure the impact of that, but that's a pretty short turn off the 160, and I realize that maybe there's going to be a light there at some point, but that might be worth considering. Are you also aware of any stormwater issues on this property, especially this year with what has occurred?
So what I'd say is they're gonna be required to do stormwater plan, traffic study, we just don't have those answers at this stage.
Okay.
To determine all of that, because that's gonna be coming as they start through their review process, so. The whole blue area is what they're proposing for their stormwater, but again, until they actually get into the engineering of it, that's
Mhm.
to be determined.
Got it.
It's the same with parks and open space.
Mhm.
There is a requirement, but at this level, we're not even at that conceptual sketch plan yet. This is still 30,000 foot, and then we'll get into more of the details when they start the process. So this is really just saying, we want to be the ones to review this project as the town and not the county. That's really what this process is.
So I understand the need for the town to annex this property in. That makes good sense to me. But I think if annexation action decisions are made based on a preliminary idea of what they want to do with that property, what is the impact? I'm concerned that if they want to put commercial across the frontage of the 160 and then townhomes in the other half, and more than likely, to Mr. Evans' point, it's probably going to have a bunch of young families. What's the challenge with that? So I don't know if the hope is that the town just gets this annexed in and now, has better control over what happens to this land. But the plan, as it's presented, potentially, I have concerns for that. And then lastly, the difference between taxes versus impact fees. Taxes are collected and paid by all and go into a general fund, and impact fees are paid by the developer for that development. So we're trying to encourage our town to look at their impact fees, collect those up front, so the town citizens that are already here and the ones that are moving here will get a benefit from those incomes. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Brian Blanchard, 627 Louisiana Drive. The other thought I had is looking at this map. If you look at the Schroeder ditch coming through the properties as they're shown there, the Schroeder ditch is asking for a 60-foot easement. If you look at the commercial easterly parcels and the Schroeder ditch, how it's aligned there, if you go 60 feet off of that, I'm not sure how you're going to fit commercial development in there. Because as you know, you cannot put a structure on an easement. So I think that's something to consider for the developer and the town, is how you're going to fit commercial in those two parcels with a 60-foot easement going right through it. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
And I'll just point out, the blue line actually is the proposed realignment of the Schroeder ditch, but that still is in negotiation with the Schroeder ditch company. And like I said, the applicant's starting to meet with them, so they're not gonna keep it snaking through the properties. The heads up on that. It's this line right here is the new proposed. Okay.
Didn't see that.
Laura, can you look at that? Yes. As well as the Schroeder ditch.
Any other public comment on this matter?
I'm Charlie Albert. I'm the managing member of the Bayfield Haga LLC. I'd like to kind of share with you what we're trying to accomplish here. Is we're on the south side. We'd like to develop some affordable townhouses. And on the north side, some commercial, which would give a substantial sales tax to the town of Bayfield. As far as the affordability of the townhouses, we believe that we can sell about a 1,000 square foot townhouse for around $300,000 if we can keep the infrastructure cost in control. So that's what we're working on right now, and obviously the biggest infrastructure cost is piping. Well, we got to raise up the Schroeder ditch and then pipe it. So we're working on ways to do that, and in fact, we met with Paul Black this morning to start our negotiations on how we're going to work that out. But the real key to the being able to develop it as affordable, I'm talking about around $300,000 for 1,000 square foot condo is what we're going to have to do on the what our infrastructure costs are going to be. And as far as road access, that the people mentioned the road access and parks, we'll be working on that as we continue with the design. We realize we're going to have a in-out access there, and we're not far enough along yet to comment about open space and so forth. If you have any further questions, I don't hear very well, so I may have to have some interpretation on to help me on that.
Thank you, sir. Any other public comment on this matter? All right, seeing none, we'll move on to 2B, 2022-28 Clover Meadows Phase 8 rezone.
Yes, I'm gonna ask if there's anybody on Zoom representing the applicant, because I don't see the applicant present. I don't see anybody stepping forward. So I guess I would ask the planning commission how you want to handle that, if the applicants are not here.
I would like to move forward with the hearing. I believe, based on the amount of speakers from the previous public hearing, there's a lot of people that attended this meeting today with the expectation to address this planned rezoning.
I would second that.
And then I would suggest if there's anything you want to request of the applicant, then you continue it to the next month, and then we would hold another hearing on it at that point. Go ahead. Yeah, if you guys are all good with that?
No, I wouldn't like to continue it. I'd like to hear the presentation on it, and because
No, that's
it's-
what we're saying. If
Oh,
there's
okay.
any questions that we have of the
Okay,
developer,
sorry.
we would continue.
Yes, okay.
Yeah, you don't want to make a decision or if the applicant's not willing to do something.
Okay.
But yeah, I think we have enough people here that might want to hear the presentation at least, and
Okay, all right. The Clover Meadows Phase 8 rezone. This property is located, I'm sorry, my screen is digressed in visibility, but, so this property is located just north of the Clover Meadows Phase 5, which is this location. The current Clover Meadows Phase 7 is under construction right now that wraps around. And then the orchard development is right here, it's under construction as well. HR.
Excuse me, can you keep the chatter down in the group?
yeah.
Thank you.
To the north of the property is in the industrial zone of the town and the Bayfield Parkway, and this is the Clover, or Clover Drive right away. So again, sorry about the clarity of that. So what the project's proposing is to rezone 6.2 acres of property. Currently it's zoned it's zoned R10, which is a low-density, single-family residential zone. They're proposing to change it to multifamily zoning with potential for 80 multifamily units. They also do have constraints of the Schroeder Ditch, which runs on the east side of the property, so they'll have to work with the Schroeder Ditch Company, as well as back in 2018, 2019, there was some negotiation with the developer of Clover 7, which is the same developer, to look at the Clover Drive Bayfield Parkway intersection, and they have agreed to participate in some reconstruction of that intersection in the future. And so the town's been collecting a fee for every property sold in Clover 7 to pay towards that infrastructure improvements. We need a left turn lane off of Bayfield Parkway on Clover Drive. And so the Mustang Crossing project that just came through, also the town negotiated with them to help pay for that intersection improvements. And so the town will be asking the same of this project to help pay for those intersection improvements at Clover Drive and Bayfield Parkway intersection. And then the other constraint is just its proximity to industrial uses. We did get a comment in from the review agencies from La Plata County, who shares a yard with the Bayfield Public Works. And they said during the snow events, they're gonna have workers there 24 hours at night with snowplow equipment, although I would say for a transition between single family and Clover Meadows 5 and industrial, multifamily could be a good transitional zone, because there's some design elements that you can do to help mitigate some of that noise with the units and their orientation and fencing and landscaping that maybe isn't as possible with a single family configuration. So this would be a logical transition between single family and a higher impact industrial zone that's in the industrial zone area just to the north. So there is rezone criteria in the land use code, and staff did go through those each individually. So I do want to kind of spend some time going through that one right now. And so the first one is there a need that exists? And I'd say right now, looking at our zoning map for the town of Bayfield, we do not have many multifamily zone properties in the community. In fact, I think I only counted a handful of them, and they're usually, most of them are already developed. And so we don't have any undeveloped multifamily properties in the town of Bayfield. We do have a lot of single-family and larger lot properties. So from a planning perspective, yes, there is a need. We're looking for affordable housing. This is a way to do that, and we don't have an inventory of this type of zoning in the community. The particular parcel of ground is indeed the correct site for a proposed development. So the comprehensive plan actually already has this as multifamily.
Where does it say that in that?
And where?
I went-
On the future land use map.
So the future land use map, the 2018 one that's currently approved,
Designated for-
actually doesn't even have this incorporated into the city.
I have it right here.
Well, the one linked to the city's website does not.
Are you looking at the old website?
I'm looking at the one that shows up on Google when you click on it and has everybody's name on it that's on the planning commission minus Commissioner Cash and myself.
Yeah, so the brown area on the comprehensive plan is our multifamily, and so it's right in there. So on the comp plan, it's already designated as multifamily.
Can you zoom in on that? Because the color coding was separate, and it said it was designated in the 2018, which is linked to the public, and it's not linked, color coded as
So
multifamily.
the town has a new website, so I don't know what Google's pulling up, but the new website is bayfieldgov.org.
Mhm.
It does have this map on it. Like I said, I don't know what the Google, because we just transitioned from an old website to the new one. So here's a property right here. Again, that's the zoning. I'm talking about the comprehensive plan. So it's zoned R10, and that's what they're in front of the planning commission tonight, is to rezone it from R10 to multifamily. The comprehensive plan already has it designated as multifamily, so they don't have to actually do a comprehensive plan amendment for this zone because it's already multifamily. All of this, the orchard is multifamily, all of this is already in the comprehensive plan as multifamily. So there's a difference between zoning and the comprehensive plan. The comprehensive plan is our future land use map. Zoning is what is currently allowed for that use, and staff will not recommend approval of a rezone unless it's consistent with the town's comprehensive plan. So in this case, it's consistent with what they're asking for is consistent with what is currently on the comprehensive plan. Does that help?
No, because when we discussed earlier in our email, you said the last time a comprehensive plan had been approved was in 2018.
This is the map from that.
And in 2018, this was not annexed into the city, it was county. So I don't know how we have an approved comprehensive plan
This is
map.
the town.
That wasn't annexed at the time, and I looked at the annexation document on the assessor site, and it was post 2018. So my conflict with this is the fact that we have a updated comprehensive plan map that's been updated post 2018 approval of the comprehensive plan. After you told me the last time it was approved, and I know we are working on one currently, and we spent a large portion of this past summer doing that. So I'm wondering how there was a change to the comprehensive plan map between 2018 and now to incorporate areas that were not annexed into the city at the time.
Comprehensive plan map includes a 3-mile boundary. It's not the area. Comprehensive plan's future land use. It's not the zoning. It's not the town limits. There's a difference between the comprehensive plan.
But that's what I'm getting at, is there's a black line on there that indicates the city boundaries, am I correct?
From 2018, correct.
No, I'm telling you, the map I looked at, and I looked up on the assessor site, this property was not annexed in the city pre-2018. So how can you have a comprehensive plan map with it inside the city limits when in 2018 it wasn't within the city limits?
I'm pretty sure it was in the city limits in 2018.
So when was this approved? Then you guys have fictitious documentation on the internet that's available to the public that contradicts this. That's labeled 2018 comprehensive plan.
I don't know what you were looking at, but this is the
Well, that's what I'm telling you, is that we have conflicting public available records that conflict with each other, that are labeled the same thing. So how do we know which one is the correct one?
This was adopted in that document that Katie just handed you in 2018.
Okay, but I'm telling you, I looked on the internet, and it was labeled on the city's website as the 2018 comprehensive plan map, and this wasn't on it, and it wasn't even inside the city limits. So the city has multiple maps labeled the same thing that are public available on the internet for the public to review. So
The TV says.
I'm sorry, Nicole, this is Jeff Merchant. We can't hear the audio anymore. We lost audio.
Can you hear us now?
Yes, thank you.
I think it's because we weren't talking.
That was in the middle of the sentence.
I'm pulling up the website to show what's on the current website for the 2018 comprehensive plan. It's the same plan I was just showing you. So I can't tell you what you were looking at, I don't know.
I can pull it up on my phone and I can show it to you. And whether it's on an old website or a new website, the other one hasn't been removed, and this one's a public available document that conflicts with this one. And it's labeled the exact same thing. And so it says 2018, and it's not even incorporated.
This was approved in the 2018 comprehensive plan. And in that comprehensive plan, this property was designated for multifamily. And it is correct what I had stated to you, that we are in the process of looking at updates to the comprehensive plan, but those will not happen until spring of 2023. So, right now, we're still under the 2018 comprehensive. While you're looking, I'm going to continue with the presentation. So the number B is the parcel of ground is indeed the correct site for proposed development. And so I did say for the comp plan, future land use map designates these properties as high density residential. There is multifamily to the west of the project and a mobile home park to the east. Though it's designed, multifamily can be a good transition, as I just said, between the industrial to the north and single family to the south. Then the question is, there has been an error on the original zoning. I don't know that. I wasn't here when the town zoning map was created. All I know is that the comprehensive plan does show that the high density. So if it was single family, the comp plan would show low density or medium density. And so high density does show that there was the intent for potential multifamily like this. But again, I don't know anything about the history of this zoning. There have been significant changes in the area to warrant a zone change. And what I'm saying is the area around these properties have been developed over the years, so these are the last vacant developable parcels in this area of town. And Bayfield's developed as mainly a single-family community, so there is a need and warrant for multifamily housing in the community. Adequate circulation exists and traffic movements would not be impeded by development. The project will have 2 points of access off Orchard Drive from Clover Drive and from Sunflower Lane through the Clover Meadows subdivisions. Additional municipal service costs will not be incurred, which the town is not prepared to meet. So the developer will be required to clean Orchard and Sunflower Lanes, which eventually will become public streets, so the town will have responsibility for maintenance of those streets. but we're also expecting them to participate in the Clover Drive Bayfield Parkway intersection improvements, and they will be required to install stormwater facilities that the HOA will be responsible to maintain. They also connect to existing municipal services, so water and sewer will be provided to these properties. All public improvements will eventually become the town's responsibility, which the town is prepared to take on and maintain. The housing units will be required to pay plant investment fees, which are our impact fees for water and sewer connection, park fees, and school fees at the time the building permits will be issued, so they'll be paying for all those fees. There are minimal environmental impacts, or impacts can be mitigated, so the area around these properties has already been developed. There are some stormwater issues that staff is aware of, and the shorter ditch is also on the east side of this property, and so they will be required to provide a geotech report as part of their development. They're also required to provide a stormwater plan for how they're going to address the stormwater that runs through this property currently. The proposal is consistent with the town master plan maps, goals, and policies, and again, the master plan is the comp plan, and it is consistent with the comp plan. And then last, there's adequate waste and sewage disposal, water, sewers, parks, schools, recreation, and other services to the proportional degree necessary due to the impacts created by the proposed land use. And the town does have adequate utility services to serve the project. Town staff sent the proposal to the school district and has not heard anything back from them. And again, we've already talked to them about bigger picture things going on in the community, so they're aware we have a lot of development proposals. The project would set aside land for HOA maintained parks and open space facilities, especially with the density, or it should, where staff's asking and making that a condition, especially with the density that will be, they're proposing, rather than pay the parkland dedication fee. So right now, the code does allow them to provide parkland at 0.4 acres per unit, or to pay the dedication fee. And what we're asking is that it actually provides them parkland with this type of density in this area. They could possibly combine it with the stormwater facility, do something similar with Fox Farm has done with the playground. So instead of them paying the fee, staff asking that they provide land and that the HOA will maintain that park. And then per land use code section 5.4, the board of trustees in their sole determination may determine that the developer shall pay the fee of land dedication or provide the parkland. So the staff is going to be asking the board specifically to require parkland. And then we did review it again based on the comprehensive plan, and it does meet the comprehensive plan policies as well as the future land use map. It was routed to agencies to review, and I kind of said some of the constraints right now. There's concern with the LaPlata County Engineering, just concerned that they would be impacting residential, and so I think there's ways we can help mitigate some of that concern, knowing that during the winter months, we're also going to have snow plows going in front of everybody's houses in the middle of the night on the streets as well. And then the Schroeder Ditch Company, again, making sure that we'll be working with the ditch company, and the ditch company is asking that it be piped, but also that the town have some maintenance responsibilities. So we'll be working with them, because that's not a responsibility the town doesn't want to take on, but working with them to make sure that the development does not impact the ditch or the ditch property rights that people have downstream. And let's see, and then the Colorado Geologic Survey did have some comments, but again, we do require a geotech report, which will help them determine what type of foundations and how streets and utilities are laid within the development. And so this project also has a process. The rezone is the first phase, and then they would need to go through again the sketch plan, the preliminary plan, and the final plan as they move through the process. So they're still going to have the planning process ahead of them after the rezone. And conditions to staff. Again, staff is supporting this. I think the biggest reasons is we don't have this type of land availability in the community. We have a need for affordable housing, attainable housing in the community. I think multifamily could be a range of things. You could still see some standalone single-family units in there, and that's going to be based on single family, like patio home type units, we could see some attached townhomes, you could see some multi-unit development. So there's a range that the multifamily would allow for in this zone, and it's not just a big apartment building. So there's a range of different types, and I think if, I know there's concerned neighbors, then, we could look at how do we want to, what do we want to see behind property on Clover Meadows 5? We might want to see some more detached or low profile units there, and then maybe as it gets to the industrial area across Orchard, you might want to see some higher density on that side. So again, you can do a mix, and that can play out through this process. So the rezones that form, but then we can also work with the developers through the sketch plan and preliminary and final to make sure that what they propose there is not super impactful to adjacent neighborhoods. So some of the conditions that staff is proposing is that if the board trustees decides to rezone the property, the board shall adopt the ordinance rezoning the property. So a rezone does require an ordinance, and so that will be provided to the board of trustees. The sketch plan does need to meet the requirements of land use code section 3.4 and any conditions in this rezone. The applicant shall submit an agreement signed by the applicant and the Schroeder Ditch Company as to how they're going to align or if they're going to pilot the Schroeder Ditch, and so that has to happen at sketch plan. If they have surface water rights, again, we're going to require that we're going to require a study to determine what their use is going to be, their demand, and then determine if they have water rights, and if not, they'll have to pay the remove fee for those water rights. The developer needs to participate in the Clover Drive Bayfield Parkway intersection, and the developer does need to provide some open space and park facilities on the property that will be maintained by the HOA. And again, the developer is not present to answer questions, but it seems like there's a room full of people that be wanting to speak to this. And I'm happy to answer any questions that you have with staff.
This is the time, excuse me, I open it up for public comment. Just if you step up, just state your name and address and your concerns, and we'll go from there.
My name's Mary Benson, and I live at 723 Lupine. So I prepared a statement. This is my first meeting. So I oppose the rezoning request from CMR Southwest Properties and Corey Gosney related to Clover Meadows Phase 8. I believe rezoning sets a precedent that will exponentially increase the growing population in Bayfield at a much faster rate than single-family homes. Each unit of the approximately 80-unit development will likely house between 1 and 4 people, which equates to between 80 and 320 people living in a relatively small area. According to recent census data, the average household size in Bayfield is just over 3 people. This data also, multifamily units are typically taller than single-family homes, meaning less privacy for anyone living nearby. Upper units in the development can easily look down into yards and into neighboring windows. Increased traffic in that area is a concern. Traffic is already significantly backed up at pickup and drop-off near the primary school, and seniors living in the assisted living facility nearby walk in that area with no sidewalks, which is also a safety concern. Data indicates that the town has a child dependency ratio of nearly 50%. And we have to assume that new development means more children. We already have a problem with availability of children's services, and more kids than programming means that parents are fighting for limited childcare and library services. Kids who have yards would not need the public spaces, and they would not be wandering the neighborhoods, and so I'm concerned about all of the development going on, and that we don't really know the impact that all of these individual approved spaces is going to have on Bayfield. So when I looked at census data, it says the population growth in Bayfield grew by 182 people between 2018 and 2021. And if we look at the average 3 people per unit at this rezoning, we are going to increase the numbers of residents by more than this in just one development. And this is not the only one that's been approved. Mustang Crossing will have 85. Bayfield East is even larger with an unknown number of single-family and multifamily homes being proposed. And we just heard another proposal for multi-unit properties and affordable housing in the annex proposal. So a large increase in population begs the question of whether or not other vital services are equipped to handle the increase. Our Pine River Fire, the Sheriff's Office, our roads, social services, schools, and educators able to handle these increases, and how much can they handle? If they can't accommodate expansion, does this mean more taxes or levies? Water rates are increasing, sewer rates will follow. What is this going to mean for the long term? So I request that you deny the rezoning application, and I think it would be nice to have an impact study that is more comprehensive for 5 years, 10 years, and see what that really means for the town of Bayfield, and does this planned growth meet the mission and vision of the town?
Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Brian Blanchard, 627 Louisiana Drive. Generally, I'm not opposed to the proposal here. I think 80 is a bit much, obviously, with those numbers, what that creates, with all the different developments we do have going on. That's another big number for the town to assimilate. My concern on this project is really was like it was for me when Mustang was proposed, and that is the people that are on Lupine and Daylily are going to be inundated with vehicles. There's just no way around it. Yes, some will go out the other way, but your traffic studies will show that it'll probably be split about 50-50. So at 250 people or more, ADTs are going to be significant coming and going out of that subdivision. The other thing is about the proposed open space. If you grant something like 80 units in there, I agree that we're going to have a lot of people, and there's only 6.2 acres in this project. And based on the town's formula for open space and park, based on the number of units, that breaks down to 80 units times your formula, 0.04, would be 3.2 acres. So out of 6.2 acres, they got to give up 3 acres just for the park and open space to make this work. That's a lot of people, and we're going to need that open space and park to mitigate if you allow a project of that size, again, without a single family with yards and ways for kids to play and whatnot. So I would propose that you look at maybe a compromise with a developer of some sort to mitigate the impact for the immediate residents. And I still think it can work for the developer as well. But it also sits up on a hillside, so even if it was only 2 stories, you're still going to see a looming project up there. And the other is the storm drain, and Jeremy would know better on this, but I've walked that property several times, and the gravity will take it right down to where Orchard's detention pond is. That's the low spot, and it's going to have to go there. So you're going to have 2 back-to-back detention ponds right at the bottom of the hill there. So I would think that would be a bit of a concern as well. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, my name is Ben Ferrier. I'm a resident of 755 Daylily Drive, which is in Clover Meadows, adjacent to this proposed rezoning. So I oppose this rezoning. I think we got it right the first time, and it is appropriately zoned as single-family homes. You know, this putting in multifamily homes here would change the unique character of our neighborhood. And I think there's a number of other issues to consider. The stormwater issue is a big issue. We had some significant flooding there over this summer with the big rainstorms we have. I don't think that's been addressed yet. We have some irrigation water concerns with the irrigation system that runs into the Clover Meadows neighborhood. Some of this infrastructure is shared on property boundaries with this development, and those issues have yet to be resolved with this developer. We're working on it, but we're not there yet. Worried about the amount of traffic and the safety of our kids in the neighborhood. Worried about property values in the neighborhood. I think this would negatively impact our property values. So again, I think this is a great spot for development, just not of multifamily homes. I think, like I said in the beginning, it was zoned appropriately as single family. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Wendy Espinosa, 727 Lupine. I guess, kind of want to reiterate what Mary and Ben both said. This would be basically my backyard. And when we bought the property, we were told it would be single-family homes back there. And my concerns are our streets are very narrow. So if someone's parked on our streets, it's basically a one-way street because there's not room for two vehicles. They're very narrow streets. And this would add a lot more traffic for us. During the school drop-off and pickup hours, there's a ton of traffic through there, and Clover is back clear up past where you would turn on to these streets. And the impact that would have on the school district for 80 new homes. And as a long-term child care provider in this town, there's a significant need for child care here, and bringing that many more families is going to be a huge problem for child care. And just the water, sewer, marshal's office, all those things of bringing that many more families into our community and into that small area. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Kat Katzos, 525 Dove Ranch Road. So we've been sitting in on several of these development proposal meetings for many, many months now. And I felt that back at the beginning of Mustang Crossing, that there was limited view about the impact. There's really only two ways in to that entire neighborhood and that school. There was no planning for that. There was no additional requirements for the other developers. I'm sitting on the steering committee for the updating of the comp plan land use codes. The stormwater is a massive issue, and you can't piecemeal stormwater repair and mitigation per development. It's an overall development that all kind of feeds in to the same system. So these ponds that were built more or less by that developer for that area provided a limited support system to the town, and now it's falling to the town. So there's a lot of old history with how these developments were viewed. They were viewed just by the acreage and what the developer wanted to do, but there wasn't a future vision for what was going to happen to that area. It's just been piecemealed in. And to keep dropping these sort of higher density developments in without getting the infrastructure into place. I've lived in towns where the town had a vision and they put together a plan that ensured that the roads were wide enough, that there were sidewalks, that there were bike lanes, before they just let all these developers come in. I realize we're rural, I realize we're behind the 8 ball at this point, but to keep approving these without a broader impact idea of what's happening to these developments. If the east annexation goes in, that might be a better place for these multi-family homes, just because the impact is so great in this area of these multi-subdivisions. And then the infrastructure is just not there. The stormwater is still a big deal, and we can't find the money, and we're going to see what we can do. So it's going to be, how do we address the most pertinent stormwater issues while we're letting these developers continue to add more impact to already stressed systems? So, I don't know. I don't know that this is the right place for this. I'm so for multifamily dwellings. It's definitely needed. We have people that can't afford to live here in this area, and they have young families, but I don't know the right way to do it, but just saying yes to all these developments isn't making sense without ensuring that your infrastructure is in place to handle the impact. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any more public comment before we move to the action agenda?
Yes, please. My name is Jeff Merchant, and I live on 705 Lupine Drive. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Great. I just want to bring up one other thing. I know it's stormwater, and we're right in the basin there that gets it all through our backyard. My proposal, I would like for the board to consider, new developers to improve the current storm system that we have now. It worked before we had concrete and roofs, and now once we're going to get concrete and roofs, we're not going to have a field for it to drain into and seep in the ground. We're just going to have that much more water coming through my backyard and a number of other neighbors' yards that obviously it's broken now. And I just want to put my 2 cents in as well. So, yeah, and I also disagree with the new zoning. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, this is Justin Firestein at 266 Meadows Circle, part of the Clover Meadows, the original development as well. Can you guys hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
I just want to, share a lot of the same sentiments as the rest of the folks that have spoken. I wanted to raise a couple of concerns with the PowerPoint presentation and some of the comments that were there. It concerns me a bit that we're just saying there was an error with the original zoning and going by a proposed plan as opposed to what the actual case might be. Knowing that this is the same developer as the Phase 7 Clover Meadows development also gives me pause. Further ditch easements, and our HOA has now had to hire an attorney to address those issues. So it feels like we're kind of putting the cart before the horse in a lot of these situations. Address these issues after the fact. The drainage pond that's part of the Phase 7 film development. We were originally told there was going to be a park there with barbecue areas and that sort of thing. That's all changed. Now it's a nice mosquito.
Yeah, you're cutting out, Jeff. Sorry.
Okay, can you hear me?
Yep.
Yeah, you just keep getting faint.
Okay. Yeah, I'm just talking about the drainage pond at Phase 7 there. With the original proposal was that was going to be a park with barbecue areas and some sort of a drainage situation. That changed and is now kind of a mess. I guess I think most Bayfield residents in the area would agree. So I just have concerns about 80 units going in such a tight space. Traffic, the intersection at Clover Drive, Lupine and Meadows Circle there, it's already overwhelmed, and to add another, let's assume 2 cars per 80 unit, another 150 vehicles.
Justin, we lost you. There you go. We keep losing you.
Is this better?
Yes.
With the additional proposal of Mr. Haga's farm and multifamily units that are going to be going into the north, I just think there's going to be a lot of traffic for roadways that don't have sidewalks and shoulders and that sort of thing. So that's kind of the extent of my comments. Thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Hi, Brooke Briel, 754 Daylily. I'm not going to beat a dead horse, but I pretty much would echo every sentiment that's been said thus far. Would definitely propose to deny single-family rezone of this area. I think it would be a compromise to keep it as a single-family zoning. Probably biggest concern of mine, no children, but the traffic. I know we've talked about the developer being on the hook for redoing the Bayfield Parkway Clover intersection, but as that stands currently, all the way down from Clover Meadows all the way to Lupine, there is not a single sidewalk. And I will also echo that I work from home and am home every single day, walk down to the mailbox right around when school is being let out, and traffic is insane. Also, the Sunflower Drive, that is the proposed second access point, I believe, not only are our current residents that live in that area parking on the street, they're very narrow streets. So I would just echo every sentiment that said, I think we need to relook at the infrastructure before we make a decision to rezone this to multifamily. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am. Any more public comment before we move on? I appreciate everybody that,
Sounds like there's one more on Zoom.
This is Lawrence Wilborn at 702 Lupine.
We
You guys
can,
hear me?
yeah.
Yes.
Yeah, we just want to, like, the traffic's huge, it's a huge problem. That really needs to be looked at. And with the merchants and all that, the water runoff and all, that's another big issue. I think all that really needs to be addressed too. And rezoning, I don't know that that's something we need to do.
Could you repeat your name again, sir?
Lawrence Wilborn,
Thank you.
702 Lupine.
so I'll open it up one last time for any other, oh,
Question, do we need to go on record that we are opposing this?
If you have something to say, not,
Nothing more than anybody's
Okay.
already said.
You're-
But do we just need to be on record that
It-
we're opposing this?
you can stand up, state your name and address for the record.
Okay. I'm Chris McSweeney. I live at 728 Lupine. And this will also affect my neighborhood greatly. I just wanted to go on record to say that, yes, I absolutely oppose this multifamily unit. I think 80 is way too much for everything that everybody has already stated.
thank you, ma'am.
Julie Blanchard, 627 Louisiana Drive. I would like to go on record as opposing this rezone as well. I would also ask that everyone who's here tonight in the audience come at the next town meeting with the Board of Trustees. Thank you.
Thank you, ma'am.
Are we closing that public hearing now?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and close the public hearing and we'll move on to the action agenda. Welcome back. All right, moving on to 3A, approval of October 11th, 2022 minutes. I'd entertain a motion.
So moved.
Second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Gadd,
Yes.
Commissioner Nelson, oh, sorry, Mayor Tarkington,
Yes.
Commissioner Snooks,
Yes.
Chairperson Nyberg,
Yes.
all in favor.
Thank you, ma'am. Moving on to 3B, 2022-24 Pine River Commons, also known as 2107 Bayfield Parkway annexation. Entertain a motion.
I would make a motion to approve the Pine River Commons annexation and initial zoning with the following findings and conditions as stated in action A.
Is there a second?
I'd second that.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Evans,
No.
Vice Chairperson Gadd,
Yes.
Mayor Tarkington,
Yes.
Commissioner Snooks. oh,
Yes.
And Chairperson Nyberg.
Yes.
4 in favor, 1 against.
Moving on to action agenda C, 2022-28 Clover Meadows Phase 8 rezone. I'd entertain a motion.
I just want to have a little discussion on that. First of all, I never like when the applicant is not here to address some of this. And I appreciate everybody coming here to talk about their feelings on this. I do kind of feel like it is a little bit of a NIMBY situation, not in my backyard, but I get it. I do have a ton of concerns about the density there, the traffic, all of the things that you stated today. That is definitely a concern for that area. I don't know if there's any other thoughts or feelings on that. I personally feel like I cannot get on board with the rezoning. And it tears me up because I know the need for that type of housing in our community. But I just wanted to have a conversation with the board here.
I think I'd agree without the applicant here to address some of this, answer any questions at all. I don't think, I wouldn't feel comfortable moving forward with it at all.
Did you want to table it or motion and action on it?
I was going to motion to deny it, so,
I mean, that's your,
yeah, I'm just waiting.
I'm okay with moving forward on it. I feel like they missed their chance, you know? They knew this was happening. And it's a shame that the applicant's not here to address some of those concerns or have, answer some of that.
Personally, I think if the applicant was here, I don't think he can answer a lot of those questions with the overwhelming, people opposing and, I'm comfortable moving either way. I would also oppose this.
Yeah. And my biggest thing is the applicant is the prime instigator for us. And personally, if you're asking the city and the townspeople to commit their time and energy, notify the public of this hearing, and you fail to appear, that falls on the applicant. And the onus does not fall back on the planning commission and our city planners and staff that take the time and energy to put this packet together and on the community members. So I don't feel we should fail in the benefit of the applicant for their lack of attendance. So I would like to raise a motion.
Do it.
I'd like to raise a motion to deny the rezoning of the Clover Meadow Phase 8 for the specific reasons of that it does not meet the city's plans and goals, and the applicant was unable to explain his rationalization for the rezoning when it's already been zoned in the city for single family.
I'll second.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Gadd,
The yes is.
You're agreeing to
we're
deny.
agreeing to deny, yes. Just want to make sure.
Mayor Tarkington.
Yes.
Chairperson Nyberg,
Yes.
all in favor of denial.
Let Cash back in.
So how this, I'll explain this to the public real quick. So how this works is the planning commission makes a recommendation to the board of trustees. So it'll be in front of the board of trustees next Tuesday, November 15th at 6:30 here at the same place, where they make the final decision.
All right, moving on. Oh,
Second. Cash is gonna excuse himself. He's got a family emergency.
okay. All right, moving on, 3D, Planning Commission Chair, Vice Chair nominations, elections.
So, as all 7 planning commissioners, or the 3 that terms were up, were reappointed to the planning commission by the board of trustees. And so, now we need to decide on a new chair and vice chair. Since there's only 4 of you, you may want to continue this item to the next meeting when you have the full board present. So that's up to you. But we need a new chair, vice chair, or from now till November.
I think the term would be table this issue until the December meeting.
So I motion to continue till December.
I will second to table/continue that action item. What is it? 3D.
Roll call, please.
Commissioner Evans,
Yes.
Vice Chairperson Gadd,
Yes.
Mayor Tarkington,
Yes.
Chairperson Nyberg,
Yes.
all in favor.
All right, moving on to 4A, update on October 17th public stormwater meeting.
Yes, so we did host a public stormwater meeting. We had a really good turnout. Stormwater is the hot topic for the summer. And we had between 20 and 30 people. I didn't actually take count, and not everybody unfortunately signed in. But again, a good turnout. I'm outlining in more detail for the board of trustees what they talked about, but in general, we went over protections of the Pine River, what the town currently does for maintenance, what's the responsibility of homeowners when they have drainage easements, as well as HOAs when they have drainage facilities that are part of HOAs responsibility. And then we had a list of projects that staff has flagged as important items that need to be looked at for 2023. The first one being a feasibility study, which we just got the budget approved to go ahead and move forward with that. And that'll give us a menu of stormwater projects that need to occur and prioritize and cost estimates for those projects. And then the other item that we really talked about, which the public, was how do we pay for these projects moving forward. The board of trustees asked staff to go to the public and ask how do we pay for stormwater in the future. And so we had a few different options. We had do nothing, different than what we're doing now. We had, reducing some town services, like Parks and Rec, services, street maintenance, 24/7 marshals. We had a fee, adopt a fee similar to what water and sewer fees are right now, and trash. We had a tax, we go to the voters for a tax. And so the public meeting, we had, I think the biggest was, there was a write-in for bond, looking at bonds, getting a bond or other fees or impact fees. So there was a write-in for that had a lot of votes. And then fee was probably next, looking at a fee. And then we went and did the same actual stormwater presentation to our comp plan working group and asked them for their thoughts on policy changes in the comp plan. And then also what they wanted to see was how we pay for stormwater in the future. And with that group, the majority was looking at the fee. So next steps we want to do for stormwater is we're definitely updating the comp plan. So we'll be putting some policies, because right now we have like one policy for stormwater, and that was to update the 2014 drainage master plan. So we've created some additional policies that will be finalizing and putting into the comp plan update draft. That'll come up with the planning commission and the board of trustees hopefully in the spring. But we also are probably going to continue to look at how we pay for stormwater and what a fee would look like as part of that process. So more to come on the stormwater discussion, and definitely more to come on comp plan updates. So I want to give you just a brief summary of what those two meetings were.
Well, I had another commitment, I couldn't make it that night. Can you tell me, does the town of Bayfield require projects to fall under a state permit and have that in place?
Yes, it's over an acre in size.
Awesome. Update on October 25th comp plan working group meeting? That was kind of, okay. 4C, November 15th, 2022 is the next meeting of the Board of Trustees at 6:30. November 29th, 2022, next comp plan working group meeting.
We're going to talk economic development. Have some speakers come. And everyone's welcome to sit in, the public's welcome. We do have a public input session at the very end.
So I have, you have on the agenda December 6th is the next planning commission. That's actually the regular Board of Trustees meeting,
What is the next one?
13th.
the 13th. And then just kind of FYI, the Board of Trustees will be considering kind of a attendance by Zoom type of resolution. But I think that the planning commission has they can make that decision on their own about attendance by Zoom. But anyway, just so you're aware that that's coming. And just to answer your question about the website, we do have a responsibility to leave the old website up I think we have the 18th is the deadline for that to end. However, I am aware, because when I first got here, we went from an old website to a new website. And what happens if you have any of those cookies in your history? Sometimes it will pull up a website that's no longer there. So sometimes those are always challenges in website. We are working diligently to get this new one up and running with all of the current and valid information. So.
No, I apologize. It just was conflicting. So
No, I
that's why I
understand.
had that map difference. I'll pull a screenshot. My phone's not working the same way, but it may be the old website just linked to it, but it's more just maybe even disconnect those hyperlinks, if you still have access to that website, so that way it's not. Yeah, so it might be not be worth the time then. So.
And then you said the next planning commission meeting is December 13th.
13th.
And then 4F, a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
Second.
Thank you, guys.
We saw history tonight.
They want to build a giant event center in my backyard. I need all those people to get here and see it.
Yeah, I